All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the fourth quarter 2025 State of Downtown Pittsburgh, focusing on downtown's residential market. I'm Aaron Sukanek, Vice President of District Development here at the PDP, joined today by Kate Irvin, our Senior Director of Economic Development, also Denise Bortolotti, Kate will introduce more um, further along in the presentation, and Jeremy Waldrop, our President and CEO here at PDP. Before I kick it over to Jeremy, though, just a bit of housekeeping. Today's program is being held as a webinar, so please submit any questions through the chat. We'll address those at the end of the presentation during the Q&A section, and we'll be recording this session today. So with that, I'll kick it over to Jeremy.
Thanks, Aaron, and thank you all for joining us today. We are excited to update you on the progress that's being made, efforts underway, and our vision for how the PDP is leading, supporting, and collaborating on a shared commitment to the transformation of downtown. Earlier this year, we released our strategy in action. This approach prioritized steps and measurable outcomes, blending a high-level vision with hands-on execution. This strategy is grounded in three strategic tiers: core, activation, and transformation. Our core work is critical to our success, ensuring that we create clean, safe, and welcoming spaces for all. We know that this is still a work in progress and there's a lot to be done, and we want your help. If you don't already, we encourage you to utilize our on-street services dispatch line. You can call, text, or email us and let us know how our team can assist, from providing supportive services to individuals in need to removing graffiti. Our team is hard at work supporting downtown. You can access this team 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. by calling or texting 412-855-6903 or emailing dispatch@downtownpittsburgh.com. And I'll put that information in the chat in just a minute. Our second tier is activation, which is creating vibrant spaces full of art, culture, and community. Whether we're doing this directly or we're working with one of our dozens of partners, we want a downtown that's chocked full of things for you, your kids, and your mom to do. And our third tier is transformation. And this will be the focus of today's discussion. How do we create programs and advocate for support to promote a vibrant, economically diverse, and resilient neighborhood? It's going to take all of us, and we need your support as an advocate for our public safety services, our human services, and importantly, our economic growth investments. This second slide here, as I mentioned, we presented earlier that we benchmarked our current building use and developed some specific goals and targets to bolster downtown's vibrancy through building conversions to growing our retail and hospitality industries. This work will continue to transform the downtown economy. We were bolstered by the support of the governor and are seeing transformation happening in real time, from Arts Landing to Market Square to dozens of redevelopment projects incorporating new retail and restaurants. We're collectively reaping the benefits of working together, but this is just the beginning. We can't take our foot off the gas. We're looking forward to working with this new administration in City Hall, building upon the successes we've had to date and creating even more. But we need you to lean in and support our small businesses. Get your haircut at one of our dozens of downtown salons, order that charcuterie board from Pear Charcuterie on Smithfield Street, and most importantly, stay engaged. If you see something you want to change it. Talk to us about it. We are here every day looking for ways to spark investment and transform this community. And we appreciate your support, but we need you to do more. All right, I'm off my soapbox now. I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron Sukanek to talk a little bit about downtown's real estate portfolio mix and the implementation of the strategic goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. In late January at our Q1 State of Downtown, we went through the math on our current residential, office, and retail square footage downtown, or live, work, play as shown here. And we discussed how the market indicators inform what an optimal mix would be. So seen here are the pie charts with the current downtown commercial real estate mix on the left and the optimal on the right. But specific to residential development, the highlights of our analysis were that with lease renewals and relocations within downtown office space happening at 60 to 70% of their previous square footage, approximately 35% of office space could be vacant within the next decade. And with flight to quality Class A office leasing trend on the rise, future vacant office space would be primarily Class B and C, which are older buildings easier to convert to residential and other uses. Therefore, to arrive at an optimal market balance here, around 35% of our office square footage, as much as 8 million square feet, could be converted to residential or other non-office uses. And converting this much square footage could bring our residential population from 7,300 to over 15,000. The math informed our strategic plan success measure of doubling the amount of residential square footage, increasing that population to 15,000 in the next decade. And some good news for working towards that goal. You'll hear today that downtown's residential occupancy rate is at a near all-time high, fully rebounded from its low of around 81% in Q4 2020. So as a primer for the rest of what you'll hear today, let's quickly touch on why and how downtown's residential market could absorb many more units while also maintaining that high occupancy rate well into the future. But first, there's just a quick side note. For the purposes of this presentation, please note that when we say downtown or Golden Triangle or CBD, Central Business District, as seen here in the yellow lined areas, that is different than greater downtown, which is downtown plus North Shore, South Shore, Strip District, Lower Hill, Bluff, Uptown, which is seen here in this blue lined area. This chart shows how downtown's residential base has expanded steadily over the past 25 years. In 2000, the Golden Triangle had a population of just over 2,500 residents, while other greater downtown neighborhoods had about 8,000 residents. Today, the downtown population has grown to roughly 7,300 residents, while downtown adjacent neighborhoods has more than 15,000, bringing the total greater downtown residential population to about 22,500. That's 183% population growth for downtown itself and 87% growth for the surrounding neighborhoods since 2020. Together, these areas have more than doubled their residential population in the past 25 years. So let's look at how often new residents are moving into downtown and the age groups driving that movement. This chart explains how downtown's residential growth is happening. Nearly half of all downtown residents, 45%, lived somewhere else just 1 year ago. Compare that to only 13% in Allegheny County. That means downtown's population growth is being driven by new residents. Movement is highest among younger adults, especially those 18 to 34 years old. More than half of 18 to 24-year-olds and half of 25 to 34-year-olds living downtown moved here within the past year. So this reinforces downtown's role as a gateway neighborhood, attracting students, recent graduates, and early career professionals who are choosing to live close to work and all the sports venues, live music and performing arts venues, and just an overall social lifestyle. Now, downtown's older residents are also more mobile than anywhere else in the county, more than 10 times the county rate. So the 65 plus population shows the highest mobility of all. 57% moved within the past year compared to just 5% in Allegheny County. So from this, we can conclude that retirees and downsizers are actively choosing downtown, presumably also drawn by downtown's walkability and convenience. And as you may have read recently, Pittsburgh is experiencing a recent population increase with a nearly 1% population growth between 2023 and 2024. That's about 2,900 new residents. This marks the second consecutive year of population growth and a turnaround after decades of population decline. This is the largest annual gain in recent years and makes Pittsburgh the fastest growing city in Pennsylvania, according to US Census Bureau estimates. Which brings us to our first key takeaway. Based on the current trends, new Pittsburghers means new downtowners. And as our city's annual growth continues, we can expect greater demand for downtown residential units, as well as the steady absorption of new residential units being delivered to the downtown market. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kate, who's going to take a deeper dive on downtown's recent residential trends.
Thanks, Aaron. So we're going to kick off by looking at some of the occupancy rates for downtown apartments. These are our rental apartments. So this chart's tracking residential occupancy in the Golden Triangle from 2019 through the most recent quarter of 2025. So as you can see here, downtown residential occupancy is strongly rebounded since the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, it had peaked at 94.8% in late 2019, and then it drops very sharply to a low of 81.6% in the fourth quarter of 2020 as residents relocated and leasing activity slowed. However, we've been seeing a steady demand and a steady recovery over the past 4 years. And by early 2022, occupancy had returned to pre-pandemic levels. And despite some moderate quarterly fluctuations tied to new unit deliveries, downtown's residential markets remained healthy and stable. As of the third quarter of 2025, occupancy stands at 93.8%, nearly matching the pre-pandemic highs that we saw in 2019. So we wanted to go a little bit deeper. And so this chart is tracking occupancy trends between newly converted and renovated Golden Triangle buildings against the overall Golden Triangle residential market from 2020 through this third quarter of 2025. So following that pandemic era dip in late 2020, both new and existing Golden Triangle buildings have demonstrated steady recovery and long-term stability. New buildings initially saw strong leasing performance, reaching near full occupancy in early 2021, a reflection of high demand for new product and modern amenities, even during a broader market downturn. Since 2022, occupancy rates for both categories has largely moved in tandem, with the newer converted buildings maintaining a consistent advantage. And as of Q3 in 2025, the newest remodeled Golden Triangle buildings are at 95% occupied, with the broader Golden Triangle market around 94%. So both of these really nearing that pre-pandemic high and reflecting a steady residential demand across downtown. And this moderate performance gap does underscore continued interest in downtown's newest residential offerings and sustained confidence in the Golden Triangle's housing market overall. There we go. So this is now looking at residential occupancy across not just the Golden Triangle, but some of our surrounding neighborhoods and then greater downtown, which Aaron kind of explained is sort of downtown with all of the residential neighborhoods combined. And so again, we're sort of seeing that really dramatic dip in 2020 that the Golden Triangle experienced, as did all of the other submarkets. But the Golden Triangle kind of most dramatically experienced that dip. But what's notable now is that the Golden Triangle, our core, has led all neighborhoods in occupancy for the second consecutive quarter. So at 93.8%, it's slightly higher than the North Shore's 93.2%, the Strip District's 91.4%, and then that greater downtown average at 90.4%. So it's a significant reversal from the early pandemic period where the Golden Triangle saw that sharp decline in occupancy. And it's now the tightest residential submarket in the greater downtown, with strong leasing activity and sustained demand despite steady additions to supply, really reinforcing that downtown living's rebounded and is in many ways outperforming expectations. So in addition to occupancy, we also want to understand what the rent per square foot is. And so this is again looking at all of those submarkets, particularly the Golden Triangle, North Shore, Strip District, and then all of greater downtown. So downtown apartment rents have shown consistent growth since 2020. The Strip District continues to lead the market with an average rent of $2.63 per square foot, really kind of reflecting that premium positioning and newer inventory. Greater downtown rents have steadily climbed, reaching $2.25 per square foot, with the Golden Triangle and North Shore close behind at $1.96 and $1.97, respectively. So across all submarkets, rents have exceeded pre-pandemic levels, but at kind of varying levels. That said, when we really start to compare the Golden Triangle against kind of overall against those newest buildings, kind of the newer conversions, we really start to see the change in price per square foot. So this chart's comparing rental rates between those newly redeveloped Golden Triangle buildings and then the broader residential market. So while there was a little bit of a softening in the early pandemic period, downtown rents have steadily climbed, reflecting a healthy recovery and sustained demand for urban living. These newest Golden Triangle buildings are commanding a clear rent premium, averaging $2.63 per square foot in Q3 of 2025, on par with the Strip District's $2.63 per square foot. And so by contrast, the broader Great Golden Triangle market is remaining very stable at $1.97 per square foot. So it's important to note the newest Golden Triangle buildings, they're commanding rents equal to the Strip District. And so, layered with this occupancy data from the previous slides, it's really reinforcing that downtown's recovery has been very, very strong. Occupancy in both new and existing buildings is remaining above 90%. New buildings are maintaining that 95% occupancy along with higher rents. And the broader Golden Triangle continues to perform well, often outperforming other neighborhoods, especially in terms of occupancy. So we wanted to provide an example of one of downtown's newest residential buildings, the Ivy Residences, which is performing exceptionally well, reaching full occupancy with all 15 units leased as of September 30th, 2025. And so across this property, our one-bedroom units, averaging about 542 square feet, are bringing in average monthly rents of $1,970, where the two-bedroom units are averaging about $3,000 a month. There aren't any three-bedroom units in this building, but the large four-bedroom units, which is averaging 3,600 square feet, command rents as high as $8,500 a month. Currently, the retail space on the ground floor remains vacant, but there is an executed letter of intent and design and development underway with a lease commencement anticipated soon. So from a broader market perspective, the Ivy Residence's performance mirrors downtown's strong residential rebound. Golden Triangle occupancy, again, is reaching almost 94% in Q3, and those newer buildings are really averaging upper of 95%, signaling that stable, near full occupancy across both our new and our legacy properties. And then in terms of rent, the Ivy Residence's pricing remains well above the district average of $1.97 per square foot and competitive with the newest downtown buildings that are achieving that $2.63 per square foot. So this positions the Ivy Residences as one of our best performing new properties in this segment and reinforces the continued strength of the downtown residential market, where both occupancy and rents have far surpassed pre-pandemic levels. So for a key takeaway here, downtown housing market is strong, it's stable, and it's competitive, with new conversions leading the way in both occupancy and rent growth. Downtown's residential market continues to be one of the strongest components of the overall downtown economy. Occupancy across all submarkets is remaining above 90%, with the Golden Triangle at nearly 94%, and the newest buildings averaging around 95%. And again, for the second quarter in a row, we're seeing the Golden Triangle as the most occupied submarket in all of Greater Downtown. And we're also seeing that consistent rent growth across all of the submarkets, with the newest Golden Triangle renovations achieving over that $2.60 per square foot comparative to closer to $1.97 in the broader market. So together, these points are really show the trends to a stable downtown housing market, one that's maintaining strong occupancy and commanding higher rents, even as new supply slowly enters the market. So with that, we're going to shift from our rental market into our condo market, sort of understanding a little bit more of what the sales are looking like in downtown. So this chart is tracking downtown's condominium sales by quarter from 2020 through this most recent quarter of Q3 2025. So condominium activity in downtown has remained relatively steady over the past several years, reflecting consistent buyer interest, even though broader market shifts have continued. So after softening a little bit in late 2023, sales volumes have rebounded, with 16 condo transactions recorded in Q3 of 2025. And quarterly fluctuations are typical for this segment, but the overall trend points to a renewed movement and confidence in the downtown market. So when looking at our totals kind of through 2025 year to date, downtown condo sales have remained relatively consistent over the past several years. Activity kind of peaked in 2022 with 73 sales, driven in part by post-pandemic buyer demand and new listings entering the market. Sales dipped a bit in 2023 and 24, in line with regional trends and the limited new condo activity. So far in 2025, 47 units have sold year to date, surpassing the number sold at this time last year. And what's particularly encouraging is that many of this year's transactions involved units that had been on the market for an extended period of time, signaling renewed buyer confidence and a clear uptick in movement within the downtown market, where some long listed properties are finally finding buyers. And then this chart is looking at our average and median sales prices for downtown condos from 2021 through year to date 2025. We saw sales price peak in 2023 with the median sales price reaching just under 500,000 and an average of just under 350,000, driven by several upper end closings. Prices moderated slightly in 2024 and have cooled a little bit further in 2025 year to date, with the average now around 248,000 and the median at about 284, bringing us back around 2022 pricing levels. This shift reflects a change in product mix, not necessarily a decline in value, with more mid-market and older condo units being sold this year, along with some high-end luxury units, which our next speaker will get a little bit more into. So what's important to note is that sales volume continues to increase even as prices have normalized, with 47 condo sales sold already year to date. This is above where we were at in 2024. And so buyer activity really has clearly resumed, reflecting renewed confidence and greater affordability at the current price points. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Denise Bartolotti. She's with Pyatt Sotheby International, and she's going to give us a little bit more detail and depth on the downtown market and the buyers coming into this market. Denise?
Hi, Kate. Hi, everybody. My name is Denise Bortolotti, and I am with Pyatt Sotheby's International Realty, where I specialize in downtown residential and luxury condominium sales. So I work closely with buyers, sellers, and developers. So I get the pleasure of see firsthand how downtown Pittsburgh is evolving and changing. And what's most exciting right now is that we are not just seeing a movement, but we are seeing a momentum. Downtown continues to be one of the most consistent and resilient markets in our region, maintaining steady condo sales year after year, as we saw in the other charts, even with everything working against us, because between higher interest rates, post-pandemic shift towards suburban living, media narratives that don't always match what's really happening on the ground, downtown is actually holding very strong. Of course, there's still work to do, but we need more everyday amenities, for example, things like a full service grocery store and other neighborhood conveniences that make urban living effortless. But despite those challenges, buyers are showing up. Properties that sat on the market for years are finally selling. And that's a clear sign that confidence is back. At the upper end, the luxury segment is leading this new momentum. At Lumiere, for example, 350 Oliver, homes reach up to $3.5 million. The Fairmont Residences has currently 2 beautiful penthouses for sale, listed at $3.6 and $5.2 million, solidifying downtown as a true luxury destination. And then there's the McGinn Lofts. It's a petite 7-unit boutique building on Liberty Avenue, with units up to $1.4 million. It's a special story. The building was purchased privately before the pandemic and converted into residential units. But until this year, none had ever sold. So now I personally closed this year the commercial space and 2 of the units And they are the first sales ever recorded there. So this kind of turnaround, especially on a street that still faces visible challenges like Liberty Avenue, it sends a powerful message that people are betting on downtown again. The downtown buyer base is evolving and diversifying, as Aaron said. I see a lot of relocations. We see a lot of physicians, a lot of tech professionals, some returning Pittsburghers, and even parents buying for their kids that go to specifically CMU and Point Park University. Relocation activities also growing. As I said, this year I work with the buyers relocating from all over the place, from Atlanta, Houston, New York, and also we started to see people relocating for work to Pittsburgh internationally. This week I'm gonna close on a condo in downtown with a couple from Brazil. So while downtown still has a work ahead from adding retail and grocery options and addressing the challenges of renewal, the direction is clear. I think we are doing really, really well. Also, the rental market, the luxury rental market reflects the same confidence. In August, I leased a downtown unit to a professional athlete for $15,000 a month, something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. I believe that between the NFL draft approaching and new developments reshaping the skyline, optimism and pride are returning. And the data shows stability, but the real story is confidence. People from every walk of life are moving back to Pittsburgh, investing again, and believing that downtown Pittsburgh is ready for the next chapter.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was some really great context and details on the market and kind of how your experience is in the market. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that context.
Thank you.
And so really kind of our key takeaway number 3, sort of with the data and the context that Denise was able to provide, is that the downtown condo sales, they remain strong. We're seeing rising transactions, renewed buyer confidence, and a continued strength in that luxury segment, signaling a healthy, balanced for sale market. Downtown's for sale market has continued to show steady movement, even as prices have normalized from the post-pandemic highs of 2023. And as Denise commented as well, even with increasing interest rates and other kind of external market factors, we're seeing consistent sales and growth in that luxury market. And so after nearly 2 years of elevated prices, condo values have normalized to near 2022 levels, but buyer activity has continued to accelerate. And we anticipate to continue surpassing the record of 2024 by the end of 2025. And much of the movement that we're seeing in downtown is coming from properties both that have been on the market for an extended time frame, showing that kind of lingering inventory is finally clearing as broader buyer interest broadens, but then also really seeing that luxury segment continuing to outperform expectations. Denise letting us know about the Megan Loft sales. That's so exciting to see those units move, as well as to see that commercial space fill up, as well as the high-end sales at Lumiere. And we're excited to see those 2 very high-end additional condos that have come onto the market. And so these trends really continue to complement the broader residential story. Rental occupancy and rents remain high. Now the ownership side is also showing renewed energy. And so together, these trends are highlighting a downtown housing market that's both resilient and dynamic, with strong renter and buyer demand, supporting continued stability. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron, who's going to talk about some of the future of downtown and our residential pipeline.
Thanks, Kate. Yep, let's talk about what's on the horizon for residential development. Downtown's pipeline of projects continues to expand with more than 1,100 residential units, over 15 projects that are on track to be delivered within roughly the next 3 years. These projects are, of course, in various stages of planning, from planning or early planning or concept to construction. And this list actually does not include the newly announced Grant Building conversion, which would add 350 units and be delivered around 2030. But projects like the Gulf Tower, First and Market, and 938 Penn Ave are already well underway. The mix of projects under construction, planning, and conceptual shown here indicate that both the private sector and government partners are embracing housing as a key part of downtown's future. These projects will add a mix of market rate and affordable units, helping diversify downtown's housing options and strengthen its 24/7 residential base. In addition to the market rate projects, several downtown buildings have recently received affordable housing incentives, supporting the development of nearly 450 new or preserved affordable units. This demonstrates that downtown's new housing has a wide range of affordability, utilizing every funding source possible to fill financing gaps in these challenging and expensive projects. This map shows our residential properties, including that pipeline of projects in those various phases. The blue markers represent our existing residential properties, while the green represents those under construction or in the planning phases. So while this geographic spread is really encouraging, it does underscore a couple key points. First, the continued concentration of residential properties in and around the cultural district, which is the historic core of residential properties in downtown. And second, many of these projects, the ones in green, are still in planning or financing stages, which illustrates the number of projects that could be facing hurdles to get into construction. So while downtown's conversion potential is strong, we can't really say that it's all 100% everything's a go, because developers are encountering barriers that are slowing project timelines and even challenging their overall feasibility. First, construction costs remain a major barrier to getting from planning into construction. Conversion projects have seen dramatic cost escalation over the past 5 years, driven by higher material and labor expenses. National studies from CBRE, Gensler, and the Urban Land Institute indicate that projects converting older or historic buildings continue to face higher per square foot costs than new ground-up construction. And the volatility in construction material pricing, coupled with labor shortages, has added significant construction budget risk. Second, financing gaps remain a hurdle. Most of these projects rely on complex financing stacks. They combine tax credits, government grants or loans, multiple sources of debt financing, and investor equity, which are often time-bound commitments requiring a perfect orchestration of timing for everything getting to a closing. Also, traditional lenders are cautious about projects with complex floor plates or historic structures and the added risk that those often have. But finally, each project here in Pittsburgh is competing for debt and equity financing with not only other projects in other locations and cities, but also other investment options. These projects can take years fighting to hold all their financing commitments in place before construction. And in that time, investors or lenders might find higher yield options elsewhere, or similar projects in peer cities might be nearing construction faster and more readily investable. And sometimes that's thanks to receiving more public support. Like, for example, Ohio, whose peer cities of Columbus and Cincinnati are often mentioned alongside Pittsburgh as like markets. Ohio has a much larger state historic tax credit program and a robust mixed-use housing development tax credit program. So this sort of competition and uncertainty risks these projects really never getting into construction. But these barriers are not unique to Pittsburgh. These are the same headwinds affecting conversion projects in most cities across the country. But they also underscore the importance of financing tools, incentive programs, and public-private partnerships that can help maintain downtown's momentum and keep its conversion pipeline alive. One such example of this is the Gulf Tower. Once the Golden Triangle's tallest building, the 44-story Gulf Tower's redevelopment is one of the 7 conversion projects featured in Governor Shapiro's downtown revitalization plan. Developers, Left Lane Development and Rugby Realty are leading the charge to convert approximately 425,000 square feet of existing office space into 220 residential units, 129 luxury hotel rooms, and 15,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. With roughly $227 million in estimated costs, the project could receive as much as $10 million in state redevelopment capital assistance grants. And that other debt and equity financing has already been secured to cover that remaining $217 million. So if everything continues as planned and on schedule, the development team expects construction to last through 2027, which brings us to key takeaway number 4. The math is hard. Downtown's housing market has demand momentum, but high costs are delaying the construction of new units. Delivering these office to residential projects, all at various stages in the pipeline, will require targeted local interventions. That means incentives, gap financing, faster permitting, to realize our shared goal of increasing downtown's housing supply and residential population. We look forward to working with the next mayoral administration and continuing our work with other partners in government and civic organizations to provide more tools and process improvements to help these projects overcome such obstacles. And ultimately, to see our downtown population double to that 15,000 number by 2035. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jeremy to bring us home and lead us into the Q&A.
Thanks, Aaron, for your leadership, and to Denise for sharing your keen insights in the market. I think stability and confidence is a shared sentiment from many of our downtown stakeholders. We appreciate that. I'd also like to give a strong shout out to Kate Urban for all of her work in assembling this data. In addition to this, she does a lot more for us. This is her night job, it seems like most days. So we appreciate your work and leadership in this space as well. I'd like to encourage you to start putting any questions you have in the chat, and I'm going to talk to us a little bit about some next steps. So first, if you're considering converting an office building, you want to learn more about the residential market and you're not sure where to start, you need some extra help with market data, exploring financing opportunities, or frankly, anything else, reach out to us. We want to help however possible. Increasing our residential population is a key ingredient of downtown's transformation, and it's critical for arriving at that optimal commercial real estate mix. We are bringing together government officials monthly to discuss specific residential projects and determine collectively how we can help close gaps and see continued progress. So if you want to bend our ear, we definitely want to hear from you. Second, we are conducting a market and building conditions analysis with U3 advisors, and they're a real estate and economic development advisory firm that works with anchor institutions like universities and hospitals to create real estate assets and build new partnerships. This strategy is building for downtown, one that looks at block by block what's happening on our streets with the intent of understanding why certain places are consistently underutilized and how we can support new investments. Ideas coming out of this work will include the analysis of parcel and assessor data, tax delinquency, permits and violations, brokerage comps, rent and absorption, facade and upper floor vacancies, any environmental flags, and historic designation. This work will come out with a market diagnostic that will provide a high-level financial feasibility of private development, looking at our achievable rents with our goal of ascertaining, is there any private pathway forward here? And if not, continue to advocate for public support. And then lastly, we hope you'll join us for our next State of Downtown in January of 2026, focusing on investments in our retail, streetscape, and park spaces. If you have a building or retail space, a blank wall, or a hole in a sidewalk, we want to hear from you. Let's see how we can work together to invest in these spaces. We're working with the city and partners like the DNA to increase the vibrancy throughout downtown Pittsburgh. We aren't doing this for the NFL draft, but we're certainly not allowing this big deadline to be wasted. So thank you for your time and support of this important work, for joining us here today, and we look forward to hearing from you now or in the future about ways that we continue to support this investment. All right, let's open up this chat here. Brian, when will traffic signals be updated in the Golden Triangle, especially fully coordinated signals? I will start this and then I'll kick it over to Aaron because he might have a little bit more details. I know the traffic signalization plan, I believe, is complete for the most part for what the city had underway with the initial investment. We are pulling together information on the implementation of the bus rapid transit line, specifically the bus lanes that are on Forbes Avenue, Liberty Avenue, and 6th Avenue, to really understand the impact that it's having on business operations and what sort of consequences have resulted from that. Are there streets that no longer push traffic through as efficiently as possible? Are there interruptions to valet service, to drop off? We have a number of unique types of users on these corridors. So we have a meeting next month with the PRT, the city, and the county to really begin to discuss. If you have specific concerns, we have been surveying stakeholders along this corridor, but if you are interested in providing details specifically around the BRT and how the bus movements have impacted your commute or your operations, definitely let us know. Aaron, anything to add to that?
Nope, I think that's it. If there's anything else here, there was the Green Light Go program with the city, but that was before the BRT. So yeah, please reach out.
A next question coming in from Tim Schooley over at the Pittsburgh Business Times. What is the available inventory of condos downtown, and how far is Lumiere being sold out? Kate, do you have an answer to that first one? I do not know off the top of my head how many units are listed.
No, I'd have to double check. I think it's somewhere around 660 approximately, but I'd have to double check those numbers. Denise, do you know off the top of your head the number of condo units?
And I think specifically the inventory of available. So what's on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 8
Oh, I'm
units
sorry.
available for sale right now at Lumiere, but it's a mix between developer and private sales.
And I'm sorry, you cut out. You said 8?
8, yes.
8.
Okay. And then Tim, we can circle back on that available inventory. We'll have to pull that from MLS.
Yeah.
What new efforts are underway to improve security and help the homeless panhandling population? I will say that I think the coordination between our on-street services, the Department of Human Services and their contractors, which includes a whole host of nonprofit organizations, as well as the city's OCHS, has never been stronger. That doesn't mean that there are not challenges that exist. We encourage you to reach out to our on-street services team, and I failed to put that in the chat. I'll do that when I stop talking, to let us know if there's an individual in need. I think we have almost functionally brought the number of folks sleeping in encampments down to less than 30, and it was upwards of over 300 to 400, kind of in the prime of post-pandemic efforts. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And we are working hard to ensure that everyone that wants a place to stay has a place to stay, and that our outreach teams are kind of aware of folks that are sleeping rough and kind of connecting with them on a regular, I would say, more than once a day basis. The cold weather shelter will be opening up in about 18 days. That will provide some additional beds And we will be working with the county to operate a shuttle service that our team staffs, ensuring that folks, that transportation is not a barrier for folks to access housing. From a security perspective, we continue to see the benefits of the Zone 2 substation on Wood Street between Forbes Avenue and Fifth Avenue. And they'll continue to work with public safety to make sure that officers are deployed at the right times. But if you see something that's concerning to you, please reach out. Additionally, we have a lot of outreach happening to our teens. As everyone's aware, we have a couple of thousand students learning in downtown every day and a couple of thousand students commuting through downtown every day. And so with resources from the public sector and philanthropy, we have outreach teams 7 days a week, primarily after school. And the city has done some targeted focus on kids as they're coming into downtown in the mornings. But again, we're appreciative of those efforts, but certainly know that there's still work to be done. Next question, what is the estimated completion date for Market Square construction? This is rather timely. Tomorrow, we will be having a small event to commemorate the beam signing of the newly erected anchor structure in Market Square. And this will be just before we complete the northern half of the square. Next week, we will be having a party, which we'll be announcing tomorrow, I guess, officially. So please, Tim, don't report on this yet, because I'm now breaking the rule of not providing breaking news on this. But we'll be having a celebration of the north side of the square opening up and construction flipping to the southern half. So you'll see new traffic configurations as well as a reopening of the plaza space in the area that's currently been closed between kind of Chipotle over to Dunkin' Donuts. That will all be kind of completed and flipped. Next question, could you repeat how many of those 1,100 residential units being built will be affordable units? I believe that's around 425, 450.
Yeah, that's correct. And
Yeah.
those also range, those could be at or below 30% area median income or up to 60%, which would be, 60% AMI is, or 80% AMI, which would be like $60,000 for a one-person household.
That also includes the units that are kind of the preserved affordable units. So that means the units that are being renovated that are currently affordable, that are being updated and will remain affordable. So not all of the 450 will be new to the market units.
Thanks, y'all. Next question. Are there plans to create cleaning crews for relocations around the city, ramps, woods, etc.? There are piles of trash. And it'd be nice if it could be picked up weekly. Yes, there are. You may have heard of the Immaculate Collection that was launched earlier this year, well, actually just last month, by our friends at Allegheny Greenways. They are kind of documenting all the places where things need to be cleaned and then coordinating efforts. They're actually doing an Adopt a Roadway program. So if you're interested in contributing, it's a relatively modest dollar amount per mile to support the long-term cleanup of these efforts. Unfortunately, a lot of these locations are really hard to get to and require special equipment and ramp closures and engaging PennDOT and the county and the city in these kind of Herculean efforts to close these spaces. And what we want to do is have funding in place so that folks who are qualified and safe in doing this work are doing it, and that we have the resources to pay them for that. So it is a big push. I think we can thank the draft for kind of bringing this to our attention. But as we mentioned earlier, the intent is to put in long-term efforts to ensure that this is no longer a problem. Next, there is a concerning presence around Market Square. Who's monitoring and policing this area? Zone 2 is monitoring this area. Our staff is constantly in there. We are calling our youth engagement teams and the police as necessary. We have created a number of nooks and crannies in Market Square that has kind of encouraged, I'll say, this behavior, and we're working hard to remedy that. We did just install a ton of new light poles in Market Square. These are temporary poles, but meant to provide some additional lighting in that space. And we're also working with property owners and businesses in the square who might be contributing to, or at least turning a blind eye to some of that behavior. So it is an ongoing. If you have questions about that, again, please reach out to us via that on-street services number, which I continue to forget to put in the chat. What is PDP doing to respond to downtown misinformation in the media? It's a constant challenge for us. I think, if it bleeds, it leads. It tends to rule, particularly radio and television media. We're doing things like this. We are talking about the economy and the progress that's being made, but I am not going to get into arguments with Marty on a regular basis because I just have too many other productive things to do. But we encourage you to, shout back, get on that online Facebook tirade and talk about your experiences and how things are going well. But most importantly, we want to show a downtown that is like we know it to be, which is safe, welcoming, and the kind of place that you want to bring your 8-year-old and your 80-year-old down for a good time. And so, our eye is on that mission, and haters gonna hate. We're gonna continue to do the work. Any other questions out there? Let me put that information for our on-street services, since I've said it 17 times, in the chat for anybody that's still remaining and has that out there. And we, again, appreciate you guys joining us. Our contact information is on this slide. Feel free to reach out with any questions, concerns, and we will hope to address them as quickly as possible. Anybody else?
Jeremy, there were a couple that came in
Oh,
the
sorry.
last minute here. You want to?
Yeah, sorry. And I'm having trouble. I can only see questions. I can't see how to put this in the chat. Can
I
someone?
answered one of the questions that was I answered the Market Square question and included the dispatch
Okay.
number. So if anyone wants to get it, it's in the answers section of the Q&A.
Yes, and reminder, please contact your legislators and urge them to pass a budget. There are a number of these projects that we are referencing that require a budget from Harrisburg. So please reach out to your state reps, your senators, and encourage them to get to work and pass this legislation. Or I'm sorry, this budget. Last, there was a discount card for businesses in town. Is there another push? Yes, we still have the Edge card in place. If you, Kimberly, would like more details on that, feel free to shoot me an email and I can connect you with Jack Doherty on our team. We have a number of discounts available at restaurants and retailers throughout downtown, and that continues to be in play. And if there's a specific idea that you have for helping to promote that as people are coming back to the office or new tenants are coming in, we'd be happy to do so. All right. Anyone else? We will send around the information for the dispatch in our follow-up to everybody that registered for this event. So we should have your email, and we will do that as well as a recording of this event, so that you can put yourself to sleep at night listening to our State of Downtown report. All right, well, we're giving you 4 minutes back. We appreciate your time, your interest, and your commitment to this great place that we are so fortunate to get to support. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great week and come party with us next week at the party that I shouldn't be talking about. So stay tuned for details on that. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.